When you don't feel seen, you have no capacity to continue to serve. Futility is contagious because misery does not love company. Misery loves miserable company. And it becomes very difficult. Cultural change. I've spent the vast majority of the last 3 years of my career speaking to organizations about what it really means to change a culture. We attempt to get everybody back to their good by telling them, we're good. Yeah, everybody, it's good. It's good. A water bottle? Woo! Okay. They send in a new hire or maybe somebody from the big shooter. They come in and they're like, woo! Do you guys want to do a potluck on Friday? And people are like, fuck off, Linda. Because nothing says you matter like bring your own food, you know? But the hope is that I'm trying desperately, and then we turn on them, right? These people they don't know how to work. These kids these days are so assholery-ish. I don't know what's happening. What are we gonna do with them? And it becomes very much an us versus them. You see? The rules of the game have never changed in terms of we just need to be seen. And I think the answer is this for me. If I had one word to give you today, when we're acknowledged, we rise. Oftentimes, people, relationships, couples, they just want the answer. What is it? And if I had to distill it to one word, it would be acknowledgement. And I have to tell you, Indigenous peoples in this country have taught me more about acknowledgement than anybody on the planet. Because when I was writing Feeling Seen, I knew the answer landed somewhere in our capacity to acknowledge each other. And I spoke across this country. I told you, I grew up in Viking, Alberta, Canada, white, straight, able-bodied. I didn't see a person of color until I was in grade 3. Extremely racist to my core. You can't address what you don't acknowledge. My understanding of Indigenous peoples in this country was that they had significant issues with addiction and they got lots of government handouts. You also had to drive fast through reserve because it wasn't safe. So when I spoke across this country for the last 5 years, I would tell you this with all the embarrassment in my heart, I would sit through many land acknowledgements. And I would hear people say this all the time. How many times do we have to do this? It's history. Let's move on. Despite the fact that the last residential school closed in this country in 1996. I was in university. I've heard people say this, we've already apologized. Okay, we brought the Pope over. Okay, let's move on. He apologized, good, we're good. Here's what's interesting. In the 2015 Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report, there are 94 calls to action for us Canadians. There is only one ask for an apology, and that was indeed from the Pope. There are 1 million asks for an acknowledgement. Don't forget that there are babies buried in this province with the same heartbeat of the babies we get to go home to. You see, race is a social construct. Our DNA as human beings is 99.98% the same. And our capacity to just acknowledge, if you've ever sat in the front row of a funeral, if you've ever buried your own baby, God forbid, the last thing you want is for people to stop saying their names. And we hear this many times. How many times do we have to do this? My God, who's still married? I mean, think about this. The purpose of a wedding is to acknowledge your love with somebody else, huh? Two people get up there. One fella says to the other fella, I love you for better, for worse. You're amazing. I acknowledge my love for you, all the things. And then the other fella says, I love for you. I acknowledge my love for you for everything like that. You're amazing. What if that was a one-shot deal? What if, like, you and I got married and, like, two days later I just said to you, hey, I was just checking, do you still love me? And you were like, how many times do we have to do this? Look at your ring, it's a symbol. Huh? We are neurobiologically wired for connection. And our capacity to truly acknowledge another is our greatest superpower because it is the quickest way back to the good. It's the quickest way back to the good. And so I'm going to give you this definition of acknowledgement because I think we really need to understand it a bit more. It is the act of bearing witness to, of holding space for. You are not required to fix it. And gosh, we want to when it's our baby or our employee. We're often called into those positions to have the answer. And what we miss all the time is simply this: tell me more. If you take 3 words from this little talk, this is the ones that'll change your life. Tell me more. When you want to fix it, when you have the answer. And usually you do have the answer. Usually you can just save your child from all of the heartache and the bullying and all the things if you just tell them what to do. If you have you're a boss, a leader, a very good leader, the best leaders on the planet have one skill: emotional regulation. They stay in capacity. They stay in access to the best parts of themselves. And then even in your disarray, in your worst moments, somebody's puking, there's a gun, oh my God. They say, tell me more. Okay, look at me. Look at me. When they go, holy shit! I don't know. Yeah, that's not what we're looking for. Because we're all just here walking each other home, you know. And this capacity to then acknowledge another first, even if it takes 3 seconds or 30 minutes or 30 years, it's necessary. Because here's the 3 truths about acknowledgement. It's not an apology, okay? Because here's the interesting thing. When people say this, I'm sorry you have cancer. What the fuck are you sorry for? An acknowledgement is deeper. It is, what's the hardest part? When did you find out? What's the next steps? I'm sorry you lost your mom. Oh, that's an apology. Fine. Tell me about her. What was her name? What do you miss the most? That's an acknowledgement, you see, very different than an apology. The second thing that is true is that it's never a one-shot deal. We often say, we've already done this. We have already told our kids they matter. We've already said this to our partners. Gosh, we can't do this enough, I promise you. If you try this today, what happens to you when you're out frolicking? Those of you with children, show me one more time. So you're out frolicking in the Vancouver area. I don't know where you are. And I come up to you and I just say, Mom, can I talk to you for a second? I got to tell you, your baby's amazing. I don't know what you're doing, but you're doing something right. What's the first response if somebody acknowledges your child? What? Pride? No, it's not. Actually, it's doubt. You're suspicious. You're like, just a second here. Are you sure? Because you don't want me to be like, oh fuck, sorry, I thought you were somebody else. So can you give me how many children you have? 2. Pick your favorite. Yeah, you know. What's his name? What's his name? Charlie. So you might say, are you speaking about Charlie? And I said, listen, Charlie was at my house yesterday. This human is phenomenal. I am so grateful he's friends with my babies because I get a front row seat to see what he's going to do in this world. And I just needed you to know, Mom, you're doing great things. Then what happens is 2 things. You lean in and your voice goes up a couple octaves. My God, I love your hoodie. Do you guys want to come over for what? This is how affairs start in minor hockey. Watch yourself. The bar's so fucking low right now. We're like, you look nice. You're like, want to make out? Because this capacity to truly be seen becomes so difficult. You see, so it's never a one-shot deal. The third thing that's so true is that it must be genuine. Because when we throw this around, like, oh, you look nice today. Oh, you look better than you did before. If it's you're gorgeous. If it's disingenuine, we today now more than ever can feel it from the parking lot. So our capacity to be genuine is so critical, which requires us to be emotionally regulated. Huh? Do you see this 007 trick that if you give it away to somebody else, if I say to you, tomorrow all I want you to do is to give somebody a compliment. Tomorrow all I want you to do is to make sure that you tell somebody that they matter in your world. That requires a prefrontal cortex. So our capacity to give it away a little bit more means we have access to our good. That's where the best parts of you live. I know that to my bones. You are good. And all your babies, your partners need, your ex-partners, the people you're co-parenting with, coexisting with, is to the best of your capacity, the best parts of you. Because that's the only thing we ever have control over, you see. And so I will tell you every time that I speak, I say these words. Everything I created for you happened back on Treaty 7 land, which is now known as the center part of the province of Alberta. It is home to the Blackfoot Confederacy, which is made up of the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, the Stoney Nakoda First Nation, and the Métis Nation Region 3. It is my privilege and my honor to raise my babies on a land where so much sacrifice was made. The only job of us to do better and to be better is to simply acknowledge each other. You can't tell people how to be kind. You can't tell people how to be anti-racist. I can't say that to my kids. I gotta show them. And the more disconnected we are, the more we play this part-time, oh yeah, no, I'm anti-racist, I'm inclusive. And you go to the campfire with all your friends and you talk in accents and make jokes. You can't do this stuff part-time, friends. We have a responsibility to stay connected in this place to the people who need it the most. Those who've experienced marginalization, extreme trauma, have lost access to the best parts of themselves. Because of colonization, we agreed at one point that one color of skin mattered more than the other. Emotional regulation is a privilege because somebody has had to show you how to do it. And if you have that privilege, you need to use it. It is the reason we are here.